Hello, everybody. It's me, Shannon Lovrier. I am live and loving it tonight. Welcome to Sunday Night Live. We are going to explore the principles that allow you to thrive in change. Thrive in the change that you didn't expect. Thrive in the change that you planned for and it didn't work out the way you thought. Thrive in the change that you love, but it's still stressful. All of those nuances of change, we are able to deal with them more effectively, more resiliently when we know some basic principles. And that's what we're exploring tonight. Tonight's principle is hashtag bring the honor. There are four founding principles, four basic tenets that provide our platform when we talk about how we deal with change. And the one we're focusing on tonight is hashtag trust the process. Hello, Kelly. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Hey, if you're new to Sunday Night Live, or if you've been here a million times, well, probably hundreds, not millions, we still want to know you're here. Oh, Mary, you get to be with us live. That's awesome. Kelly, I'm glad you're here. Carol, and she's got her thumb roast coffee ready to drink. Carol, what a great segue. We can talk a little bit about thumb roast coffee. Thumb roast coffee is the best coffee I've ever drunk. And you can get your own bag of thumb roast coffee. You can grind it yourself, or you can ask them to grind it for you. And you can do that on the good old internet by going to thumbroastcoffee.com and using the coupon code THRIVE, THRIVE, you're going to get 15% off of your world's best coffee. And I'm not lying when I say it is delicious. It is just, it's just so great. I look forward to drinking my thumb roast coffee when I go to bed at night. I look forward to drinking it first thing in the morning. It's a wonderful thing, and you can try it and enjoy it too. And if you know somebody who loves coffee and you want to do something nice for them, for example, your dad may be a coffee lover and he might not live so close by, you could order him thumb roast coffee as a gift, have it sent directly to his house, and he is going to love it and feel honored because Father's Day is coming up, right? Just a couple of weeks away in June. Okay, so thumbroastcoffee.com, I highly recommend. So does Carol, obviously. She's drinking it as we speak. And here's our hashtag, you guys: trust the process. Trust the process. What we're talking about tonight might not feel like it's really a process. It may, it's going to surprise you that there's a process behind it. Potentially, it'll surprise you. But I promise you that there is. There is a promise. So here's what we're talking about. You have not, because you fill in the blank. You guys know what that answer is, right? You have not because you, two words. You have not because you ask not. You have not because you ask not. What is it about asking that gets us all tied up in knots at times? Let's explore it just a little bit. So our granddaughter Bria, when she was about 4, she had learned to count, and she went up to my husband, her papa, and said, "Papa, can I have 3 pieces of candy?" And she held up her hand, and of course, her hand, she had all of her fingers out there, guys. "Can I have 3 pieces of candy?" And Papa looked at her and said, "Well, Bria, that's not 3, that's 5." "Oh, okay," she said, and stuck out her hand. That little negotiator, she didn't miss a beat. "Oh, you want to give me 5 pieces of candy? No problem at all," she says. You'd almost think she'd done it on purpose. And I always love that story because she was so willing to take that extra. Didn't argue about it, wasn't going to she didn't argue about it, didn't decide she didn't deserve it, didn't try to give it back. It's like, "Oh, you want me to have 5 pieces of candy, I'll take them. So Carol put in another key part of that phrase that I asked about. You have not because you ask not, or because you ask amiss. That's a really, really powerful part of this, Carol. Well done capturing that. And for those of you who don't recognize that phrase, you have not because you ask not, or because you ask amiss, that is from one of my favorite books of wisdom. And it's awesome. It's in the Bible. But it applies. It applies not just way back when, it applies now. And we're going to explore this. You who want to raise, you who wish you had a better schedule at work, you who wish you had a promotion, who wants a promotion, you who has your eye on a change that somebody else needs to work with you to make. And yet you sit back and zip your lip. You have not because you ask not. We're going to focus on the first part of that phrase. You have not because you ask not, or because you're asking for the wrong thing. We're going to focus on you have not because you ask not tonight. Next week, we're going to talk about what does it mean to ask for something, but you're asking amiss. Something's not right about what you're asking for or the way you're asking for it, your motive behind it. We'll talk about that next week. Stay tuned. But today we're talking about this. You have not because you ask not. And Kelly's laughing at Bria. Yeah, Bria's, hey, give me those 5 pieces of candy. And I was reminded of that story when I connected with an old friend, excuse me, who has a daughter who I believe is in 1st grade. And Abby went trick-or-treating for Halloween. And at every house she went to, she asked, could I have 2 pieces of candy? And my friend said, every house but one gave her 2 pieces of candy. Now, some of you are shocked. I can see you are already shocked. What a greedy little girl, you're saying to yourself. And you're thinking, oh, as a parent, you would never allow that. But I want you to reconsider that. What is wrong with wanting something and asking for it politely, confidently? Could I have 2 pieces of candy? I'd like 2 pieces of candy. May I have 2 pieces of candy? When the one person during the whole evening, when the one person turned that little girl down and said, no, I can't give you 2 pieces of candy, you know what that little girl did? She said, oh, okay. End of story. She was a polite little girl, but she asked for something she wanted. And if that sounds uncomfortable to you, then you're probably wishing you got a raise. You're probably sitting there thinking, man, I wish I had a better schedule. Rachel says this, we're usually throwing handfuls into their bags. Take it. Don't leave it here for us to eat. Rachel, you are onto something. That's exactly right. This is the thing. You have not because you ask not. It's important for us to know what we want. It's important for us to be able to ask for it. Sometimes we desperately want something, we desperately want change, and it looks impossible. Look at all that valuable candy, right, Rachel? Look at all that valuable candy. It's delicious. Why would they even want to give me 2 pieces of candy? I'm not even going to ask. They would never want to give it away. While at the very same time, Rachel describes it perfectly. They're throwing hands full into the bag saying, here, take it. We don't want it here. So a little example really of what can sometimes get in our way when it comes to asking for what we want. And welcome, by the way, Rachel. I'm glad you're here. Let's see what eyeballs we've got. All right, let's see. There she is. All right. So let's talk a little bit. You want a raise. You want a schedule that fits your life better. You want a role that allows for you to use your talents and your abilities to their best effect. You want to use your skills. You want to use your superpowers. And for you to be able to use those things, it feels amazing, right? It would feel amazing if you were to get that raise or get that adjustment in your schedule, right? It would feel amazing to you. And yet, you've not asked for it. What's getting in your way? So let's talk about a couple of the things that could get in your way. So one of the first ones is this. We often don't ask for what we want because we assign so much value to it that we think the other people would never part with it. We make the mistake, and it's an arrogant mistake, really. We make the mistake of thinking that because we think it's important, everybody else would value it the same way. That the thing we want would be so meaningful to us that just it would be impossible for somebody else to be able to allow it to happen. We think in terms of either or. Either I can have it or they can have it. The solution to that is this, my friends. There is plenty to go around. There is plenty to go around. There is abundance. You can have what you need and work in a situation that your schedule works with your family. There is plenty of money to go around for you to get a raise. There is plenty for you, and at the same time, for your employer or the people that you work with. There is plenty to go around. It's a false notion that there isn't enough. There is always enough. There is abundance. There is abundance. The problem isn't that there isn't enough to go around. Sometimes the problem is that the people that we're dealing with don't see it that way. And that's valid. Sometimes they don't. Kelly says, in certain situations, I am confident to ask, and in others, I am not. Kelly, welcome to humanity, right? Welcome to humanity. Sometimes we've got it going on. We feel the mojo. Other times we're like, I don't think I'm going to ask, right? And we shrink back. Absolutely. But whether we feel confident, whether that emotion is just bubbling up within us, or we just know in our heads what we're capable of, and we make a decision based on what we know, not on what we feel, that can help us. All right. So one of the things that trips us up is that we don't ask for what we need, what we want, because we think they would never give it to us. It's just way too valuable to me. And if I value it this much, they'd never part with it. We think in terms of either or, when actually, like Rachel said, here's little Abby on the porch wanting 2 pieces of candy. And here's the lady on the porch saying, hey, have 2 pieces. You want 4 pieces? More than happy. Everybody wins in that situation. Abby got what she wanted. The lady on the porch got to do what she wanted. And Abby's mom, maybe not so much, right? Had to find something to do with all that candy. So that's one of the things that trips us up when it comes to asking for what we want. Here's another one. We are afraid that the answer will be no. I want you to really think about this truth. We have not because we ask not. And we're not asking because we're afraid we'll be told no. And because we don't ask, the answer is certainly no. You guarantee it's a no by not even asking the question. You guarantee it's a no when you don't even ask the question. We are afraid the answer is going to be no. What happens? Oh, hi, Aaron. I'm glad you're here. What happens? What happens when we hear the word no? And Aaron Lynn Skyring happens to be Abby's mom. I'm so glad you tuned in to watch it, Aaron. What happens when you make the request and someone says no? You say, oh, okay, thank you. And now you've got some information. Now you've got some information to work with. Here's the thing. This is sometimes why we don't love to hear the word no. Sometimes we don't ask for that raise because we don't want to hear no. And the reason we don't want to hear no is because we don't want to have to go look for another job. It's the fear of change. It's the fear of change that hangs over us and says, don't ask the question because the answer might be no. And then you're going to know for sure that you have to leave. Right? So as long as you're not asking, you don't know that you have to leave and you can just stay there and what? Tread water? Kill time? Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes, yeah, just staying stagnant because you don't want to ask the question, because you don't want to hear the word no. When the truth of it is, when you hear the word no, you still get to choose your reaction and you still get to choose your next step. When I worked at my government agency, I had a relatively low level as my job. It was kind of a low level. And in that government agency, as in most of them, most federal government agencies, very hierarchical. So it was very clear that a level 15, which is what I was lower on the totem pole than the 17, then the 19, then the 21, right? And so I was sort of on the lowest, almost the lowest manager you could be. And this is what I discovered. I discovered that even though I was doing a great job, I was executing well. I was executing wonderfully. I was really knocking it out of the park. I was doing what my executive boss wanted me to do and doing it really well. It was something I loved to do. I had a lot of good reasons to want a raise, a lot of really good reasons. And I put off asking for it for the longest time because I was so grateful for my position. I loved what I did. I felt like asking for a raise was going to be greedy, right? Asking for 2 pieces of candy, that's greedy. Well, is it now? Is it? Because I wasn't just benefiting myself when I went in to ask for that raise. And I did go in and ask for a raise. But here's the thing. It benefited me to ask my boss for that raise. I said, I'm doing the work of a level 21, and I proved it. There's a list. You may have those at your work, just a list of job responsibilities, or you can go to salary.com or careers.com. Go check out what's a description of the job responsibilities for what you do. And also take a look at the job description of the responsibilities for the position that's above yours. How many of those are you doing? How many of those are you doing? That's worth finding out. If you want a raise like I wanted a raise, I went and found out. I know what I'm supposed to do at this level, but I want to know, what does somebody in this kind of a role, I was in public relations, what does somebody in a public relations role do that has makes more money than me, that has a bigger title? What do they do? And I printed that off. And you guys, guess what I discovered? I was getting paid like a level 15, doing the work of a level 21. And here's the kicker. Because I was only a level 15, those hierarchical people that I was serving, helping them to promote their events and to manage bad things that happened in their offices so that the newspaper didn't get it and make them all look terrible. The work that I did in that capacity was actually compromised because I didn't have a title that matched my responsibility. I didn't get paid at a level that matched my responsibility. And when I put all that together, I took my heart in my hands and I decided all they can say is no. And I went to see my executive boss and I said, I've made an appointment, always make an appointment, and never take more time than you scheduled. Unless they invite you to stay, just a tip. So made my appointment, went in to see my boss and say, I wanted to talk with you about something. I would like a raise and I would like to be promoted. I want my title to be elevated to this level 21, and I would like the corresponding money that goes along with it. Now, talking about confidence, Kelly, I was a nervous wreck inside. I was nervous, but I also knew what I knew. I was doing the work of this level and getting paid at this level. And not only was that bad for me because I needed to be compensated for what I did, it was also bad for my business, the business I was serving, because that disparity prevented people from taking me seriously, prevented higher level managers from listening when I gave them recommendations. Like, who's she to tell me? She's just one of these little low men on the totem pole. And so I made my case to my executive boss. This is the responsibilities. This is what I do. This is the impact I've had. This is the value I'm adding. This is how it's going to affect the company in a positive way. And I'm requesting that I get this. And he said, yes. And you could have knocked me over with a feather because I had never done anything like that before in my life. But it taught me something. If you want to raise, you need to know your stuff. You need to know your stuff. Do a little research. Find out, what are you doing that makes a difference in your company? Find out what people who do what you do make. Does that mean you go in there and throw somebody's name out there and say, I work twice as hard as Joan and she's getting paid twice as much as me and I want to make as much as her? No. We'll talk about that next week, Carol, when we talk about asking amiss, right? The reason why you're asking and how you ask matters, but you can overcome your fear of hearing no when you've got evidence and you know your value. That leads us to that second or the third point, which is this. A lot of times we don't ask because we don't feel worthy. I don't deserve it. All right, let's check the comments. So Kelly says that's exactly why I don't ask. The fear of no, right? Well, you got your answer then, right? Okay. Carol says, I loved how Missy asked for her price for the coffee or the salesman. I can't remember all the details, but she said she needed to set a price where she would make something as the business owner. Sometimes we give things that we are selling away, but a fair price is okay to set. You have helped us to get there on Saturday mornings, and even right now, helped us to see our worth. That's what we're talking about, Carol. We need to see our worth and the value we bring to the table. And Carol says it's great advice. And doing the research, making the appointment, and being kind. So great. Yeah. It's not magic. It's really bring the honor, right? It's hashtag bring the honor. We have our people of character who add value to people, and we are kind. We are considerate. We are professional. We can be all of those things and have a conversation with our boss and say, I feel like I've earned a raise. I contribute. This is how, and this is why. But if we hear no, we have to understand what that means. It doesn't mean that they're terrible people. It doesn't mean that they're terrible people. It means that we will not be able to get what we need here. Whew, I'm going to say that again. When you ask for something, when you ask for the raise, when you ask for the adjustment in your schedule that you know you need, so that you can be with your family, say. And the answer is no. And there is no clear path forward. What that tells you is you can't get what you need here. You have to make a change. For many years, eight and a half years, I lifted heavy things for my government agency. I drove a forklift. I dumped magazines out of sacks onto conveyor belts. It was a valuable job. It was a necessary job, but it was not a job that tapped into my gifts and talents. It just wasn't. But I was okay with it. I was okay with it. It was fine. I had fun with my coworkers. It was fine. I didn't get to use my skills, but it was okay. I just went, punched in, visited, did my job, got my paycheck. I was done, day in and day out. The thing was, I worked afternoons. So I would start work at about 2:30 in the afternoon, and I would get off work at 11 at night. And the other thing that really wasn't so great about it was that I I a lot of times um, didn't have the weekends off. And so it really was difficult to find time to spend with my family, but we made it work until my oldest started school. And then I realized that if I was working afternoons, I never saw him. Well, I shouldn't say never. I saw him for an hour every morning before he got on the bus. And then I didn't see him again until the next morning. And that lasted for me about 3 weeks. And I said, I'm done. I need to find a day job. What am I supposed to do? So I go and talk to the boss and say, I need a day job. And they said, well, you can go bid on a day job. And basically, if there was a job that was available on days that they needed somebody to dump magazines during the day, if I had been there the longest, if I had the most seniority, I could have that job. The thing was, I didn't have the most seniority. And the way it was looking, you guys, it was going to take me until I was about 50 years old to be able to work during the day at my job. And by that time, my kids would be grown and married, and I'd have grandkids. Couldn't do it. So I started looking for options. One of my options was to leave that organization and go work somewhere else. But what I discovered was another option was for me to get a totally different job, not drive a forklift, not lift heavy things, not dump magazines onto conveyor belts. What? Started asking a few questions. What other opportunities are there? And it turned out that on the outside of that processing plant, there were 100 opportunities, 100 post offices that gave me the opportunity to work during the day so that I could see my kids at night and let the change begin. I got my no answer. There was no way they were going to be able to let me work days doing the job I was currently doing. But there were other opportunities within that organization that would allow me that opportunity. And I decided it was worth it to change. What could you do right where you are to change? Maybe not the people that you work with. Maybe you'll never be able to convince your boss. Maybe they're always going to need somebody to do the job you're doing. Is there somewhere else within your organization where you could use your gifts and talents that would be a better fit for your pay scale, for your work schedule, for your skills and talents? Hearing that no to your request doesn't mean that you can't have it. It means you can't have it right there. It's not a sign that you should never ask again. It's a sign that you need to make a change. All right. Kelly says this, I feel bad for charging for my photography because I love doing it even when I know I am better than that. Yeah. Kelly, here's a hint. The more frequently you charge for your photography, the more accustomed you will be to the feeling of getting paid for it. It's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to get paid for something that you love to do, that you've always done for fun. But just because it's uncomfortable doesn't mean that you aren't adding enough value to earn the money that you get from it. Sometimes it just takes practice. Keep charging until it feels comfortable. And then, as your skills grow, start charging more in proportion to your skills. Practice makes perfect. All right. Carol says, I don't know if you are just talking about money. And I am not just talking about money, Carol. Absolutely not. But when I was 21 and wanted to play the piano in service, I remember how scared just going to do that was. And it is scary. But I was told yes, if I would practice, if I would be faithful. There were rules. But I learned so much. And I don't know if they would have even ever asked me or known had I not been brave and asked. It wasn't about money. It was about my goal. Yes, you asked, can I play the piano? Many of you are leaders. You're on the other side of that person who's nervous coming to ask for the raise, right? You're on the other side of that. Picture how grateful you would be if somebody came and asked you, hey, I'm learning a new skill. I'd like to be able to play the piano. I'd like to be able to take notes or take minutes at a meeting, offering to add value to your boss in an area where you're gifted is generous. It's generous. And it opens up opportunities, doesn't it, Carol? But we have to ask. And what if somebody says, no, here I have this wonderful skill and you don't want it? That's okay. Many of you know that I no longer work for that government agency. I gave them my skills. I gave it all I had. But when it was time for me to leave, it was time for me to leave. I wasn't going to be able to get what I needed from them anymore. And they weren't able to get what they needed from me. I didn't get a job that I wanted. Whenever you interview for a job, folks, it's like you're asking, right? You're asking, hire me. Do you want me? Aren't I great? Do I sound great? I don't feel like I'm great. I wrote it on my resume. Am I as great as I said I was? Nerve-wracking, right? But at the end of the day, a job interview is us asking, will you take my best, the best I have to offer? Will you take that and allow me to work with you to add value to your organization? And it can be heart-wrenching when we hear the word no. And that happened to me. There are some things that I know I am very good at. I have a lot of experience in, and it's in my strength zone. I'm gifted there, so I know I'm excellent. And when I interviewed for a job that exactly needed every one of my best skills, I knew I had that job. You guys, I was a shoo-in. I felt like in the interview, I knocked it out of the park. And you know what happened? I didn't get it. They gave it to somebody else. I asked, and that organization said no. I asked, do you want to give me a position where I can use my best skills, where I can use my talents to add value to the employees and also to our customers? Do you want me? Do you want me to do what I do best and do it every day? And the kick in the gut that happened when they said, no, we want this person over here. It was breathtaking, and not in a good way, you guys. It was like a kick in the stomach. But this is what that no told me. That no told me, this isn't the place for you. They don't want your best gifts. It doesn't make it a bad organization. It makes it a bad fit. It's time for you to move on. You don't have to hate a place to leave it. You can just understand. That no means they don't value what I know I need, and they don't value me enough to give it to me, or maybe they can't. And that means I need to make a change. You're always the one in charge. All right. So Rachel says this, I never had the courage to ask for a raise at my last job because of stories and advice I got from other coworkers about how hard it was to get one. And I never could have put into words how all the soft skills and experience I had gained made me a better employee than when I'd hired in. So I never tried. I will be trying at this job though. Yes. Yes, Rachel. Yes. Yes. Okay. Lesson one we're going to gain from what you just shared. Lesson one is this. You guys, don't believe everything you hear. They are not you. Those people are not you. They have different skills. They have different attitudes. They bring different things to the table. Never believe what anybody else tells you about how hard or easy it is to get a raise. You are you. And you are worth what you're asking for. You are worth more than you're asking for. They are fortunate to have you. You can't speak for those other people. All you know is what you know about yourself, how much you grow, how much you learn, how much you contribute, how much value you add, the impact you have on the bottom line, the impact you have on the culture, the impact you have on customer service and the reviews that your organization gets, whatever that may be. You are the only person who knows what you can do and what you do. Don't let what other people say convince you not to ask. Do not. Now, you may have to consider how you ask. We'll talk a little bit about that next week. Don't want to ask amiss, right? But don't believe people when they tell you, don't do it, don't do it. And Rachel agrees that just because an organization isn't a good fit doesn't mean that they're bad. Exactly right. All right, so we talked about that. Oh, I can't remember now. Hold on. I'll have to go back in my notes. All right, so you have not because you asked not. Um, you want a raise, you want something, but you're not getting it. Are you asking for it? They're not going to just give it to you by osmosis. What stops us from asking? Sometimes we're just afraid they're going to say no. Sometimes we think we aren't worthy. I don't deserve a raise. I'm not perfect. You do deserve a raise, and nobody's perfect. And when you can understand that up here, speak it to yourself. Nobody's perfect, but I add great value. I'm not perfect, but I add great value. I'm not perfect, but I add great value. Let yourself hear those words. The people you work with aren't perfect either. Nobody is. But we hold ourselves to a higher standard sometimes, and then we don't ask for what we need. Oh, the other thing that we don't ask for something because it's so valuable to us. We think, how would they ever part with it? Turns out they don't value it at all. They'd part with it in a heartbeat. All right, the skills we're learning on Saturday morning, Carol says, are worth more. We are so much better rounded, better answers, so much more. Come be in class with us. So when we ask for a raise, we do have skills others don't. And Carol, great point that sometimes we need a little bit of outside input to help us to be in that right mind frame, have the right frame of mind to ask for a raise. And a coaching scenario is ideal to work those things out. Many of my clients come to me specifically, I need to either change jobs, they say, or I need to get a raise, or I need to get a different position, but something that's not working. And we go through the coaching process to really pull that out. And then when we get in a group setting, like we do in the masterminds on Saturday mornings, we've got the wisdom of all those other ladies coming together and saying, this is what I've learned. This is what I've learned. And then the encouragement, right? That comes that people say, I recognize this about you. You are strong there. This is good. You can be confident. Getting that validation. It's just a wonderful thing. Okay. The last thing, the last reason I'm going to talk about tonight, and I can't believe it's 7:38, but it's okay. Part of the reason why I'm going long is because of the great comments, but that's okay. I love those comments, you guys. All right, so we'll do this real quick. The last thing I want to talk about is this. We are afraid to ask because we're afraid that we're going to be punished for asking. Did you get punished for asking for things when you were little? I'm thinking about my friend Erin, whose first response when her daughter was asking for 2 pieces of candy was to shush her. Like, no, 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 you don't need to be greedy, until she caught herself and thought. Were you shamed, disciplined, punished, made to be embarrassed because you asked for something that you needed? And I'm talking real serious here for just a sec. I'm always serious, but I mean, this is serious. Sometimes those are deep wounds, and they're wounds that you may need some professional help to work on because you're a person of value and you are worth getting what you need. You deserve it just because you're a person. You don't have to do anything special to ask for what you need. You don't have to do anything amazing. You don't have to be perfect and flawless to ask for what you need. Just being a person, you are entitled to be able to ask for what you need. And if you find that difficult or even impossible, a counselor could help you with that potentially, particularly if you have a childhood history of not getting what you needed when you asked. That's a real thing. And all of my positive principles will help you some. But until that part of you gets healed, you will have difficulty, and you deserve to be healed. So if that is you, I want you to take that to heart. Okay, so we sometimes fear that we will be punished because we ask for what we need. Two things here that I want to point out. The first one is, if you are in an environment where asking for what you need brings punishment, either being shunned from the group, either being physically, mentally, or emotionally hurt, that somebody damages you because you ask for what you need, that is an unsafe environment. And you need to find a way out. Because you need to be able to safely ask for what you need. If you are afraid you are going to be punished for asking for what you need, you need to find another path. You need to find a path out of that situation. Sometimes we're afraid that other people are going to hate us because we get what we need. They don't ask for it, but we're afraid that if we ask for it and we get it, they're going to be mad at us. Now, sometimes with something like salary, that doesn't show up. Like, they don't have to know what you make, and you're going to be prudent. You're a person of honor. You're not going to go out there and blab to everybody how much money you make. You're not going to lord it over people that you just got a raise. But some other things, when you get them, they're obvious. When I asked for and got my promotion, unbeknownst to me, that promotion came with a couple of perks that I didn't realize. And one of them was a really sweet parking space. So when I didn't even know it was going to happen, when the building administrator came to me and said, Shannon, I understand you just got a promotion. That means you get to have a parking space. And they kicked somebody else out of that parking space because now I had a higher level than they did. And that was very difficult for me because I didn't care if I had that parking spot or not. But I knew within that situation that having that parking spot, it came with the title. It came with the level. If I had refused the parking spot, I would have refused the collateral, the influence that came along with it. And again, we're talking about you have not because you ask not. I wasn't asking amiss. I wasn't asking for a promotion so that I could look good. I was asking for it because I'd earned it and because it would allow me to be more effective. And I got a benefit. And it meant somebody else had to give it up. And that was hard for me, but it was appropriate. That title came with that parking spot. When I was off sick for a couple of months because I was quite ill, I recovered, thank God. Somebody else came in and did my job, and they got to park in that parking spot because it came with the job. Somebody was mad at me, but it wasn't my fault. It wasn't my fault. I didn't make the system. I didn't kick them out of their parking spot. It's tough. It's hard. I had to have a good attitude when it happened. I had to be kind. I had to not lord it over them. Now I'm getting on next week's topic. Sometimes we're afraid that we're going to be punished for asking. Sometimes we're afraid that somebody's going to be mad at us because we ask and we get it. All right, you guys, we're wrapping it up. It's 7:44, so I've gone a little over. I try to keep these to a half hour. Hopefully you're okay. You're still hanging with me. Getting ready to go, though. I hope you have a tremendous Memorial Day weekend. Honor those who lost their lives protecting our freedoms. Tomorrow, as you're grilling, as you're enjoying your day, make sure you take time to appreciate and be grateful for the cost of our freedom and for those who sacrificed their life so that we could have it. I think that's appropriate. I encourage you to do that. And next week, we're going to talk about you have not because you ask not, or because you ask amiss. What does it mean to ask amiss? And we'll talk about that more. You guys are amazing. Carol says, this was good. I'll have to listen a few times to really get it all. Yeah, probably. I wandered a little bit, Carol. I wandered a little bit, but I'm always here to enjoy my time with you guys too. So I try not to make it dry and boring. And sometimes that means I do a little bit of wiggling, but hopefully all good stuff. All right. I love you. Have a great week, and I will see you next week. Bye.